David Gemmell's Winter Warriors, Chapter 1. The night sky over the mountains was clear and bright, the stars like diamonds on sable. It was a late winter night of cold and terrible beauty, the snow hanging heavy on the branches of pine and cedar. There was no colour here, no sense of life. The land lay silent save for the occasional crack of an overladen branch or the soft, whispering sound of fallen snow being drifted by the harsh north wind. A hooded rider on a dark horse emerged from the tree line, his mount plodding slowly through the thick snow. Bent low over the saddle he rode on, his head bowed against the wind, his gloved hands holding his snow-crowned grey cloak tightly at the neck. As he came into the open he seemed to become a focus for the angry wind, which howled around him. Undaunted he urged the horse on. A white owl launched itself from a treetop, and glided down past the horse and rider. A thin rat scurried across the moonlit snow, swerving as the owl's talons touched its back. The swerve almost carried it clear. Almost. In this frozen place almost was a death sentence. Everything here was black and white, sharp and clearly defined, with no delicate shades of grey. Stark contrasts, success or failure, life or death. No second chances, no excuses. As the owl flew away with its prey, the rider looked dark. In a world without colour, his bright blue eyes shone silver grey in a face dark as ebony. The black man touched heels to his tired mount, steering the animal towards the woods. "We are both tired," whispered the rider, patting the gelding's long neck, "but we'll stop soon." Augusta looked at the sky. It was still clear. No fresh snow tonight, he thought, which meant that the tracks they were following would still be visible come dawn. The moonlight filtered through the tall trees, and Augusta began to seek a resting place. Despite the heavy hooded grey cloak and the black woolen shirt and leggings, he was cold all the way to the bone. But it was his ears that were suffering the most. Under normal circumstances he would have wrapped his scarf around his face. Not a wise move, however, when tracking three desperate men. He needed to be alert for every sound and movement. These men had already killed, and would not hesitate to do so again. Looping the reins over his pommel, he lifted his hands to his ears, rubbing at the skin. The pain was intense. Do not fear the cold, he warned himself. The cold is life. Fear should only come when his body stopped fighting the cold, when it began to feel warm and drowsy, for death's icy dagger lay waiting within that illusory warmth. The horse plodded on, following the tracks like a hound. Augusta hawed him to a stop. Somewhere up ahead the killers would be camped for the night. He sniffed the air, but could not pick up the scent of wood smoke. They would have to light a fire, otherwise they would be dead. Augusta was in no condition to tackle them now. Swinging away from the trail, he rode deeper into the woods, seeking a sheltered hollow or a cliff wall where he could build his own fire and rest. The horse stumbled in deep snow, but steadied itself. Augusta almost fell from the saddle. As he righted himself, he caught a glimpse of a cabin wall through a gap in the trees. Almost entirely snow-covered, it was nearly invisible, and had the horse not balked, he would have ridden past it. Dismounting, Augusta led the exhausted gelding to the deserted building. The door was hanging on one leather hinge, and the other having rotted away. The cabin was long and narrow beneath a sod roof, and there was a lean-to at the side out the wind. Here Augusta unsaddled the horse and rubbed him down, filling a feed bag with grain, and he looped it over the beast's ears, then covered his broad back with a blanket. Leaving the horse to feed, Augusta moved round to the front of the building, and he eased his way over the snow that had piled in the doorway. The interior was dark, but he could just make out the grey stone of the earth. As was customary in the wild, a fire had been laid. The snow had drifted down the chimney and half covered the wood. Carefully, Augusta cleaned it out and relaid the fire. Taking his tinder box from his pouch, he opened it and hesitated. The tinder would burn for only a few seconds. If the thin kindling wood did not catch fire immediately, it may take him hours to start a blaze with flint and knife. And he needed a fire desperately. The cold was making him tremble now. He struck the flint, the tinder burst into flame. Holding it to the thin kindling wood, he whispered a prayer to his star. Flames licked up, then surged through the dry wood. Augusta settled back, breathed a sigh of relief, and, as the fire flared, he looked around him, studying the room. The cabin had been neatly built by a man who cared. The joints were well crafted, as was the furniture, a bench table, 4 chairs, and a narrow bed. Shelves had been set on the north wall. They were bare now. There was only one window, and the shutters closed tight. One side of the earth was filled with logs, and old spiders' webs stretched across them. The empty shelves and the lack of personal belongings showed that the man who had built the cabin had chosen to move on. Augusta wondered why. The construction of the cabin showed a neat man, a patient man, not one to be easily deterred. Augusta scanned the walls. There was no sign of a woman's presence here. The builder had been a man alone, probably a trapper, and when he had finally left, perhaps the mountains were trapped out, he had carefully laid a fire for the next person to find his home. A considerate man. Augusta felt welcome in the cabin, as if greeted by the owner. It was a good feeling. Augusta rose and walked out to where his horse was patiently waiting. Removing the empty feed bag, he stroked his neck. There was no need to hobble him. The gelding would not leave this place of shelter. A stone chimney jutted from the wooden walls of the cabin here, and soon the fire would heat the stones. "You will be safe here for the night, my friend," Augusta told the gelding.